What's poppin', y'all? Welcome to episode 12 of my series on the 48 Laws of Power, where we connect the story and lesson from each chapter to one that happened in music. Today we're going to be talking about a really interesting story that was shown to me by a subscriber on Instagram, which you should be following me on. Shouts out to him. It's about how Master P finessed Universal Music Group out of $10 million or more dollars and left the music industry afterwards. It's one crazy story, so sit tight until the end to hear how it all happened. If you like analysis videos on hip hop and the music business, subscribe to the channel right now and hit the notification bell. I also hit them boys up at Amazon to hook you guys up with a free trial to Audible, and you get a free book so you can listen to this book. It's the first link in the description. Law 12 is as follows. Use selective honesty and generosity to disarm your victim. One sincere and honest move will cover over dozens of dishonest ones. Open-hearted gestures of honesty and generosity bring down the guard of even the most suspicious people. Once your selective honesty opens a hole in their armor, you can deceive and manipulate them at will. A timely gift, a Trojan horse, will serve the same purpose. The story we're going to look into is one of a con artist named Count Victor Lustig. He was known as one of the greatest con artists of the past several hundred years. After all, he's most known for selling the Eiffel Tower not once, but twice. He could speak multiple languages, had no fear, was cultured, and knew style like few others. And he had a very strong grasp of human psychology. He could spot a sucker from a mile away, and not only that, but understand his exact weakness. And he decided to go after a big fish this time. The Count would make a visit to Chicago, Illinois, dressed like you would expect from a con man, like Neil from White Collar if you've ever watched that TV series. Fresh suit, nice shoes, all that. In 1926, he made a visit to who was not only the most powerful gangster, but one of the most powerful people in America, someone everybody feared. He came in and made the proposition to Al Capone that if he would lend him $50,000, then he could double it. $50,000 was nothing to Al Capone, but he wasn't the kind of person to just give an amount like this to someone he never met. But just looking at the Count's style and the way he made the request, Al Capone wanted to play along. He counted out all the bills right in front of him and handed them, saying, "Okay, Count, double it in 60 days, like you said." You might think the story ends here. After all he got is 50 racks, it's time to dip, go into hiding, but no, that's not what happens. Right after receiving the money, the Count put it in a safety deposit box in Chicago and left to New York, where he had a couple of other cons going on. The $50,000 just sat there. The Count didn't even bother to try to double it or increase it at all. After 60 days, he went back to Chicago, got the money out of the deposit box, and made another visit to Al Capone. When he got there, he smiled at the bodyguards, who didn't look too happy, and said to Al Capone, "Please accept my profound regrets, Mr. Capone. I'm sorry to report that the plan failed. I failed." Al Capone stood up and was angry, but he wasn't stupid. He assumed that this was the likely outcome, but now it was time to decide where he was going to dump the Count's body after he was finished with him, or his bodyguards were finished with him. But before anything could happen, the Count reached into his pocket and pulled out the $50,000 he was given and put it on Al Capone's desk. "Here, sir, is your money, to the penny. Again, my sincere apologies. This is most embarrassing. Things didn't work out the way I thought they would. I would have loved to have doubled your money for you and for myself. Lord knows I need it, but the plan just didn't materialize." At this point, Al Capone was in shock. He said, "I know you're a con man, Count. I knew it the moment you walked in here. I expected either $100,000 or nothing. But this, getting my money back, well, my God, you're honest. If you're on the spot, here's $5 to help you along." And Al Capone counted out $5,000 and handed them to the Count. When I first read this story, it was bizarre. You can imagine someone like Al Capone had hundreds, if not thousands, of people request money from him for different opportunities, some of which just took the money and spent it, and others may have tried to invest it but failed, and some may have brought him a return on his investment. But like he said, he was usually expecting either nothing to come back or a massive return from what he was used to, but he had never gotten the exact same amount he loaned out. And when I said Count Lustig knew human psychology down to each individual, he knew the biggest weakness for someone in Al Capone's position was honesty. He was used to people always lying or deceiving in his business. So how could he possibly distrust someone who was honest? It's a depressing position to be in, so if Al Capone were to encounter someone with generosity and trustworthiness, then he would feel like there was finally someone who wasn't out to get something from him. But he did want something. From the beginning of the con, the Count was after the amount of money that he got in the end. Taking the $50,000 would have been too dangerous. Running away from a man like Al Capone wasn't going to be an enjoyable life. And there was a reason he mentioned in the end that he was struggling with money, but still managed to return the full amount he was given. It was to appeal to Al Capone's sensitive side. Here was a man who came through with a level of honesty he's never experienced before and didn't take a single dollar from the money he borrowed, even though he was going through financial struggles and needed it. The least Al Capone could do was throw him a couple of $1,000s. Something similar to this, but not exactly the same, happened with Master P and Universal Records. It's a relatively low-key story because almost all of the videos of this interview with Chamillionaire were taken off of the internet, mainly YouTube. If you're unfamiliar with Master P, he was one of the first real businessmen to come out of rap music, doing the independent hustle long before anyone else, and in 1996 signed a music distribution deal with Priority Records. No Limit Records, which was Master P's record label, would keep 100% ownership of their master's recordings and get 85% of the record sales, while Priority got 15% for pressing all the CDs and distributing them. I'm going to play the video clip for you right now.
And this is the way the industry is designed. You got to audit them and fight to get your money. It's not like the contract is just, they're going to follow it. You got to be smart enough to know that, okay, they're going to try to inflate all these charges. Let me find a way to get my money out of them. Yeah. Master P told me the illest story one time, man. I don't even know if I should repeat it, but he left this industry. He left this industry, man, and I used to go into the Universal offices, and I would be like, they would be talking crazy about Master P. I'm like, man, why y'all talking crazy about Master P? They're like, oh, Master P ran off with all the money, and we gave him a big deal, and he ran off with the money. So I got in touch with Master P, and I'm talking to Master P, and I'm trying to get him on something, and Master P is like, nah, I can't do it. I'm not doing nothing for the industry. I'm gone. And I'm like, why? You built this. You were the person that started this for me. And he was like, I said, why did everybody talk crazy about you? They said you took money from him. He says, no, I took my money. When he was doing what he was doing with Master P, with No Limit, he was putting his uncle on, he was putting his niece on, he was putting everybody on, and everybody was going platinum, right? So he's supposed to get this big check because he's doing it independently. When he gets his check, all this money is missing, and he's like, where's the rest of the money? And the label says, hey, we did all this. We got $400,000 for marketing. We got this for that. And he was like, what? I'm the one that did all that. Show me the proof. There was no proof. So Master P couldn't get his money from them. Right. So Master P says, okay, I'm going to create this new thing, new No Limit or whatever, right? And he keeps it cool. He's like, hey, I want to do this big deal. I'm going to do all the videos. I'm going to do all this stuff for all the artists. And the label says, okay. They give him he says, I want the money up front, though. So I'm not going to say how much they gave him, but they gave him a whole lot of money. And he took the money. So now the artists start blowing up, and they go to Universal like, it's time to do the video. And they say, no, we gave Master P all the money. Go get him to do the video. So they run to Master P. And they say, hey, P, the label told me that you got the money for my video, my budget. And he says, no, I got my money. So he found a way to get his money back from Universal. Right. And then he was like, I'm out. And he cashed out, and he left the industry. And to me, I was like, man, that's the most genius thing ever. Like, I wish I could cash out right now.
He's smart.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm thinking of my ways to cash out. But, that showed me he's like a hustler, you know what I'm saying? He came from like, okay, I'm going to figure out a way to make this make a lot of money. And then he used that to flip into other businesses. And, the industry's designed like that. You got to almost cheat it.
Yeah, definitely. Well,
I hope he's not mad at me.
If you're a little confused as to what happened here, Master P was an independent hustler, like I said before. He was making his own money and promoting and marketing himself, so he didn't need the budgets that these labels were paying for other artists on their roster. However, when it came time for payday, he realized that he was still getting the same cut as every other artist, but he was out hustling them and basically doing the label's job on his own. The label deducted these as expenses, which means they pocketed the money, while Master P did all the work for them, and they couldn't even provide him proof where all these marketing expenses they claim they spent on him. So, Master P decided he wasn't going to wild out on them, and the label loved him. After all, he was making them just as much, if not way more money than all these other artists on their roster, and they barely even had to do anything. It was like having an employee and an artist. They were getting paid extra for him doing twice the amount of work. So when he proposed a partnership deal to Universal Records for his venture, The New No Limit, he told them he was going to do what he was already doing for not only himself, but many other artists he was going to sign under that new label. Universal was probably doing the Birdman hand rub at this time. But this time, Master P asked him for a fat advance, which I'm just guessing was in the neighborhood of 10 million, if Chamillionaire didn't want to say anything. Remember, this was in 2001, around there, so fat advances were still a thing. The record label agreed. If Master P could bring in all that money on his own, imagine how much he could bring in with a huge advance. Well, Master P just took that money and dipped out of the industry. And when the artists under Universal were asking for funding for their music videos and stuff, the label sent them to Master P, saying he got their money. But Master P told them he doesn't have their money. He got his money that they refused to give him before. He just found another way to get to it. And after that, he left the industry and began distributing No Limit Records through Coke Records, which is now known as Entertainment One. The record labels began to talk bad about Master P, but the truth was, he just played them at their own game. They were pocketing money that was rightfully his. The same expenses that they would have paid to marketing companies should have been allocated to him. And the same for certain distribution costs when he was selling the records himself. But Master P knew he couldn't just argue or fight them head on, because they had way more resources than he did. And suing them was only going to end up in him wasting so much money on legal fees, more than what they were probably going to give him at the end of the trial. So just like every other artist, he appeared to just accept things as they were and come to the label with a new proposition. In this case, instead of like Count Lustig, he was after a fat check, more than what they had taken from him. And he approached them with finesse and a proposition that would benefit them. And they had no reason not to believe him because he had been honest and demonstrated everything he proposed to them for the new No Limit with his own career and his brothers C Murder and Silk the Shocker and his previous roster on No Limit Records. This law does have a reversal this time, and it's as follows. When you have a history of deceit behind you, no amount of honesty, generosity, or kindness will fool people. In fact, it will only call attention to itself. Once people have come to see you as deceitful, to act honest all of a sudden is simply suspicious. In these cases, it is better to play the rogue. This is the case rappers like 6ix9ine or Soulja Boy find themselves in. They've lied so many times, or trolled, whichever you want to call it, that even when they're trying to be honest, it doesn't work out in their favor. Nobody wanted to believe that 6ix9ine had really been jumped and robbed that one evening, or that Soulja Boy had really been arrested, until verifiable sources began reporting it. And even then, many people still didn't believe it until there was no longer a shred of a doubt. But they would use these things to their advantage. They played the role of the rogue. They were never really trying to be believed. For instance, the music video for 6ix9ine's song with Nicki Minaj was supposed to debut either the same day or the day after that incident. And in many other rappers' promotional strategies, they would fake getting arrested for an Instagram post, knowing it would get attention, but it was really just actors in the set of a music video. Not only does it make one unpredictable, there is always a division of people who think this is real or think this is fake, and they begin arguing, only bringing more fuel to the fire. In this case, promotion for the artist, which is a win on all fronts. An extreme example was when XXXTentacion was preparing to promote his new music video for the song Riot, and he deleted all of his posts on Instagram and only had one of a figure that looked like himself dangling from a rope tied to a tree with a mysterious caption. This caused a storm of publicity, with nearly every media outlet covering it because if it was real, it would have made sense. He was going through a lot in his life, from losing a close friend, the media hating him, the case still looming over his head, and the dozens of other issues from his past. But there were some other people that thought it was fake and just for attention, and they just began to argue back and forth, very passionately, until it was revealed it was a music video, and the initial views it got on the first date were massive. XXXTentacion did say he wasn't sure how people were going to perceive the promotional message, and I can't pretend to know his intentions. But regardless, this was hiding the truth, not necessarily lying, and seeing what the outcome would be. If he had said music video coming soon as a caption, it wouldn't have had nearly the same effect in promotion that it did with that picture and caption. Even a 10-year-old could insinuate what that meant. On the top right is a playlist for the rest of the series on the 48 Laws of Power. If you haven't seen them yet, I highly suggest you watch it if you enjoyed this video. Also, comment any other incidents of this law being used below. Like and subscribe and hit the notification bell if you enjoyed, and see you in the next video.